Today is Stanley's oral defense. Today we're talking about the proposal defense, and currently 10:07 a.m., 10th of January 2025. And here with us is me, Chair, Dr. Sri Banerjee, committee member, Dr. Jenny Oliphant, and then student Stanley Nkemjika. All right, so when you're ready, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Hmm?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stanley Nkemjika. I'm a PhD student in School of Public Health with epidemiology concentration. This is my oral defense for my proposal stage. My topic is on the relationship between climate change awareness and mental health among adults in the United States. By way of introduction and talking about my presentation, my dissertation is actually a three-paper styled manuscript dissertation. For the part one of my presentation, we start by introduction. And by way of introduction, climate change is something very significant in public health practice. And also it's raising a huge concern in terms of public health burden of what it may cause in terms of health factors. A lot has been said about it in terms of its complications. Apart from displacement of people and causing social problems, it also causes some mental health, some health problems, especially the medical concerns, because it can actually trigger hypertension for people who are hypertensive, or even trigger some other problems. It can affect infrastructures, which may actually affect people from accessing medical care as well. But a lot is beginning to be talked about mental health association with this, which is being seen as an emerging public health concern. As studies have hypothesized that significant driver of physical and psychological distress could come from climate change. But little is really known about the information about the awareness of this climate change, how it impacts people, apart from it causing problems. Events like hurricanes, wildfires, floods, and heat waves have been associated with increase in mental health disorder. But again, not much is known about what about people knowing about this. So do people actually understand what it means? It can cause some of this problem. Universally, it's acknowledged as a significant social issue with far-reaching consequences. Um, in terms of review of literature, a lot has not been done in terms of this association between climate change awareness and mental health. As a matter of fact, in terms of climate change itself and mental health, a lot has not been done. Most of the studies actually mention some of these mental health problems in passing without actually conducting some kind of statistical studies to actually see the association. One of the notable few, which is studies, a lot of studies have been done outside the United States. I could barely find one study from the United States. Is this Swedish study, which showed a significant rise in the prevalence of depression, anxiety, and PTSD in individuals exposed to climate change. However, the implication of climate change on mental health is still poorly understood to date. There's the concept of eco-anxiety, which is a term used for climate change awareness. And it's all about the feelings of fear, helplessness, and distress about environmental degradation, reported to be more evident among the younger population, which was very evident in some of these papers that I saw that are outside of the United States. Um, in terms of American Psychological Association, they released some prevalence studies where they mentioned that 68% of US adults express concern about climate change, with 40% reporting that it significantly impacts their mental health. Similarly, they also mentioned the issue of eco-anxiety tended to be most intense among people who are under 30 years. So it's kind of synonymous to the younger population, which also showed in some of those studies because they focused on younger population. 51% of young people in the US between 18 to 29 reported feeling anxious about climate change, and 29% expressing that they felt very or extremely anxious based on the APA 2020 report. People who strongly believe in the reality of climate change, which is people who actually show that they are aware of this climate change is happening in globally, they are more likely to report elevated levels of distress, such as worry, fear, and helplessness, which was some of the things that they reported, even though they did not show rigorous statistical analysis to show those associations. Hence, there is need to examine the role of climate change awareness as a psychosocial factor, playing a critical role in mental health outcomes as well. In terms of the social problem of this issue, we have to consider the general well-being on the environment and population, which the climate change causes, which comes in the form of destruction of landscapes, settlements, along with gradual environmental changes, which can lead to homelessness, displacement, proliferation of infectious diseases, on and on. The impacts of climate change is also linked to mental health disorders because, social factors can actually lead to mental health disorders as well. Because displacement of people who don't have homes, who lost their jobs, their children are not feeling well, they lost their crops, they lost everything, it can cause mental health stresses, which can portray as PTSD, sleep problems, even suicidal ideation. However, there is poor literature on this relationship, especially in vulnerable population. And some of the notable gap in literature that I saw during my literature review is number one, the climate change awareness. Again, climate change itself is not well studied in terms of the association with some of these mental health problems. But again, climate change awareness is not almost non-existent. Um, and also, there's lack of literature on the U.S. population and vulnerable population, and also the middle age and the elderly population, because some of these studies done outside were mainly on young people, children or adolescents who are in college or high school. In terms of background, the literature also suggests climate-related mental health impacts may differ depending on demographic factors like age, gender, and socioeconomic status. There's also associated increased distress, particularly in those already suffering from mental health issues. Um, However, we acknowledge that there's more research needs to be done, especially in relation to awareness of this climate change. And also, there's an idea of social support networks, resilience building intervention, and engagement in climate action as seen as being kind of protective, even though, again, statistical analysis were not properly done to see some of those relationships. But intuitively, it sounds to reason that if some of these supports are there, people are able to maintain their mental health properly. And these are some of the things that we can profile in terms of policy suggestion or public health intervention recommendations. Studies also suggest growing link between climate change awareness and increased feeling of anxiety, stress, and worry. We already know that climate change is a global threat, and as it poses uncertainty and helplessness, which I've already explained. Um, an individual report shows higher rates of generalized anxiety and persistent worry about future environmental conditions, which goes back to that eco anxiety, having an understanding of that climate change, climate changes which can actually preempt people of being anxious towards problems. And again, literature showed that younger generations are particularly vulnerable and increased level of distress tied to climate change perception. We also have to talk about marginalized groups because some of those studies did not focus on any kind of groups, just the younger population. Like I said, what about the middle age? The middle age people may have their own issues. What about the elderly? The elderly have their own problems as well. And it would be nice to actually see some of those differences. So it's better to have a holistic population in terms of everybody to see how they look like. There's also the possibility of biological sex differences, which could be regarded as gender as well, which we already know biologically there are differences in terms of sex in relation to most health problems. Children and adolescents are particularly susceptible due to their emotional and psychological distress related to climate related news sometimes, and also based on the fact that they are still developing their emotions and how to control them. Again, in terms of the gap, understanding how awareness of climate change directly affects mental health in the United States is important. And that is one thing that my dissertation intends to breach. Research on how various social demographic factors can influence this relationship is another thing that I intend that this dissertation will bridge. And also examining the relationship between climate change awareness and mental health outcomes, such as worrying. Worrying is also another, or just the English term for generalized anxiety disorder or depression or anxiety. This dissertation seeks to contribute to a growing body of literature on this topic. In terms of overview of the manuscript, just like I said, that this is a 3 manuscript dissertation. My first manuscript will be focusing on climate change awareness relationship with depression or anxiety. And the summary of the literature is based on growing concerns about climate change as it can increase stress, anxiety, or even depression. And there's lack of clarity on the specific pathways between climate change knowledge. Depression and anxiety may vary by level of awareness, and which we really don't know. For the second manuscript, I'll be looking at the biological differences of this relationship of climate change awareness and depression or anxiety. As the research has suggested that there are biological sex differences in terms of relationship for any kind of health problems, even social problems, even down to whatever problems being in the society. And sex-specific emotional responses are very important as it can lead to anxiety or grief in the form of depression as well. And there could be intersectionality in terms of those social demographic attributes that I talked about, the example, marital status or socioeconomic status. And in the third manuscript, I'll be looking at the relationship of climate change awareness and worrying, which is generalized anxiety disorder. Worrying is a key psychological response to perceived existential threats. And with the hope of noting the possible long-term effects, as generalized anxiety disorder, which is worrying, actually comes from prolonged stresses. It's not just a one-time thing. So the role of social demographic attributes will be important to see the differences in terms of the relationship. To hone the three manuscript together, how does the 3 manuscript come down to answer one question, just to portray the importance and bridge the gap in literature of what we're looking for? Manuscript 1 addresses direct mental health impact of climate change in terms of depression and anxiety. The second one looks at biological sex differences. And the third one is looking at the relationship with worries. So all in all, they will offer a well-rounded perspective on the psychological impact and mental health impact of climate change awareness. Hence, it will help to develop targeted interventions and support strategies for public health practice. The significance of my dissertation is that so far, some evidence linking climate change to adverse mental health outcomes without any proper statistical analysis to actually show those relationships. The implication of climate change on mental health is still poorly understood, let alone the climate change awareness itself and this relationship as well. And there's a lack of in-depth understanding regarding the mechanism that drive this relationship and awareness of these climate changes, particularly in the context of the United States. Social demographic factors are important and they are the key drivers of the population health to understand relationships. And public health interventions can be developed based on the findings of this study, which can actually help people to live better in the society. So I aim to explore the relationship between climate change awareness and mental health outcomes among adults in America, with a specific focus on worrying, depression, or anxiety. My study or this dissertation will utilize quantitative methods to identify patterns, trends in the relationship between climate change awareness and mental health. And this dissertation will uncover the mechanism that may underlie these associations and with major focus on social demographic attributes and possibly portray some information on social determinants of health. In terms of positive social change, this dissertation will promote or is geared to promote a healthier community through improved health outcomes for individuals with mental health challenges, particularly those impacted by climate change awareness. while also considering the influence of social demographic attributes. For the part two, focus on the manuscript proper. Um, the title of the first manuscript is The Relationship Between Climate Change Awareness and Depression and Anxiety Among the US Population. In terms of literature, summary of it, studies shows correlation between eco-anxiety and depression and people feeling sad about the loss of their jobs, loss of their homes, their children not feeling well, generally just the idea of it. And the mental health effects are stronger in communities facing immediate environmental disasters like hurricanes, wildfires, and those experiencing long-term environmental changes like droughts, rising sea levels. Um, Based on this, even with the wildfires going on in California, I mean, it would be nice to actually follow up with those people and conduct a study and see how they feel about the whole situation and what their perception might be in terms of climate change awareness prior to the fire and after the fire, if they actually believe in it. Now, some people may not really believe. It could be something that some people can look into. So in terms of the significance of manuscript one, the study focuses on the US, and that's my study will focus on the US, and it will provide insight in terms of developed country with varying levels of climate change awareness. Because of how big America is and its diversity, it will also address climate change awareness and the way it impacts mental health. And with regional differences in America, it will be important for it. This study will also explore depression and anxiety simultaneously based on the data set I plan to use because it was collected together, which would give a fuller understanding of how climate change awareness impacts emotional well-being. And this dissertation will help bridge the gap in literature and also based on the fact to consider social demographic attributes in the form of example, age, education, socioeconomic status. It will give a robust finding in terms of this analysis. In terms of the methods, my research question for manuscript one is there an association between climate change awareness and depression and anxiety among adults in America, controlling for age, gender, marital status, and socioeconomic status? Um, the null hypothesis is there is no significant association between climate change awareness and depression and anxiety among adults in America, controlling for age, gender, marital status, and socioeconomic status, while the alternate will show that the alternate hypothesis is there is significant positive association between climate change awareness and depression and anxiety among adults in America, controlling for age, gender, marital status, and socioeconomic status. And in terms of my study, it will be a quantitative study, and I'll be using a cross-sectional design method to conduct my study. And the theoretical or framework to be used is based on social ecological model, which will provide insight based on individual, interpersonal, organizational, community, and policy level, which I intend to use to provide more in-depth information in terms of my study findings. The study will use data from the Hint 6 data set is collected in 2022. Sorry, I forgot to add that there. And it's a data from the Health Information National Trend Survey. The HINTS data represent a cross-sectional of nationally representative survey of non-institutionalized US adults age 18 years and older. And in terms of the variables that I'm going to use for this study, my dependent variable from the code book shows that has a doctor or other health professional ever told you that you had depression or anxiety, and their response was the yes or no. In terms of the independent variable, the question was how much individuals think climate change will harm their health, and their responses were a lot, some, a little, not at all, don't know. Part of the data analysis I propose to do, I'm going to run descriptive analysis to portray the percentages, the frequencies. If it's a continuous variable, I intend to actually estimate the means and the standard deviation. And I'll also perform chi-square test because I intend to run my analysis as a dichotomous findings. And based on that, I will also conduct multivariable regressional analysis to get the true estimate or the true outcome of the relationship. For manuscript 2, the title would be Biological Sex Differences for the Relationship Between Climate Change Awareness and Depression and Anxiety Among the US Population. Summary of the literature reviews suggests that gender differences is evident in a lot of the health problems and also social problems. As a matter of fact, gender differences exist. And with that being said, sex-specific emotional responses has to be estimated to see that how significant the differences might be. And also, I intend to do that analysis, with social demographic attributes to see the differences. And my dissertation will introduce biological sex as a key factor in understanding this relationship, which is something new. And we'll also examine gender differences to see the difference in terms of climate-induced stress. And we'll explore, how females and males may experience climate change awareness differently. Um, and this study will offer a new lens to understand climate change awareness and how it may be disproportionately affect women or men or shape mental health outcomes as well. And this will provide evidence that mental health responses to climate change awareness are not universal, but are influenced by biological sex differences. And in terms of my research question, the research question is, to what extent is gender moderating the association between climate change awareness and depression or anxiety among adults in America, controlling for age, marital status, and socioeconomic status? And the null hypothesis, in terms of hypothesis testing, is there is no significant moderating effect of biological sex on the association between climate change awareness and depression and anxiety among adults in America, controlling for age, marital status, and socioeconomic status. And the alternate hypothesis is there is significant moderating effect of biological sex on this association between climate change awareness and depression or anxiety among adults in America, controlling for age, marital status, and socioeconomic status. Similar to the first manuscript, I will also run quantitative studies, and it's a cross-sectional design, and I'll be using the same data set, and we'll also adopt the same socio-ecological model to conduct my study. And again, I'll be using the same data set, and the dependent variable is the same, and independent variable is the same. The only difference is that I'll be using biological sex as a moderating variable to see the differences in terms of the analysis. And again, I'll run descriptive analysis to see the differences for the different gender, chi-square test, and multivariable regression analysis as well. For manuscript 3, I'll be focusing on the relationship between climate change awareness and worrying among the US population. Just like I had mentioned before, as a summary in terms of the literature review, persistent worrying about environmental collapse can be associated with mental health fatigue, helplessness, and long-term psychological distress. And again, in terms of worrying is like it's like a long-term effect of a problem that has been going on, which, like I said, is similar to generalized anxiety disorder, like I had mentioned earlier. In terms of significance, this study will examine worrying as a psychological response to climate change awareness. Um, Unlike depression and anxiety, worry is a cognitive emotional reaction, often tied to future-oriented concerns, which the concept of eco-anxiety comes in. It will provide insight on heightened awareness of climate change as the way it can lead to increased rumination, meaning increased thinking and intrusive thoughts of how bad things can happen. It's something that comes in a long-term goal. Uh, And it will examine chronic worrying about climate change, how it could lead to mental health deterioration over time. And the study will examine these based on social demographic attributes to get the true estimates of the relationship. And my research question is there an association between climate change awareness and worrying among adults in the United States, controlling for age, gender, marital status, and socioeconomic status? And the hypothesis testing, for the null hypothesis, there is no significant association between climate change awareness and worrying among adults in America, controlling for age, gender, marital status, and socioeconomic status. And the alternate hypothesis is there is a significant positive association between climate change awareness and worrying among adults in America, controlling for age, gender, marital status, and socioeconomic status. Similarly, I'll be using a quantitative. I'll be doing a quantitative study, and it's going to be a cross-sectional design study using the same data set. And I'll be using socio-ecological model as my framework to conduct the study. Again, the data set I'm going to be using is the HIN6 2022 data from Health Information National Trends Survey. And it's a cross-sectional nationally representative survey of non-institutionalized U.S. adults aged 18 years and older. And in this case, the dependent variable is how often have you been bothered by not being able to stop or control worrying? And the response is nearly every day versus more than half the day versus several days versus not at all. The independent variable will be how much individuals think climate change will harm their health. And the response is a lot, some, a little, not at all, don't know. Again, I will run descriptive analysis or descriptive statistics for continuous variable. I'm going to estimate means and standard deviation. And I also run chi-square test for binary outcomes. And also I'll run a multivariable regression analysis to get the true estimates of the relationship of this dissertation. In summary, my intent with my dissertation and based on my proposal is to provide answers in terms of addressing a growing gap in research on the mental health impact of climate change awareness in the United States. Findings from my dissertation can inform mental health interventions and climate communication strategies aimed at reducing the psychological burden of climate change awareness. And the findings from this study will provide evidence-based insights into the mental health impacts of climate change, supporting the development of mental health strategies tailored to climate concerns. Secondly, I think this is a repetition of the same slide. I'm sorry about that. In terms of my acknowledgements, I wish to acknowledge my committee chair, Dr. Banerjee, for his invaluable guidance. Thank you for exceptional leadership and guidance throughout my dissertation journey so far. And I appreciate you for your expert knowledge as you helped shape the direction and depth of this research so far, asking some questions and telling me to include some things in my ideas. Continuous support in terms of your patience, encouragement, and constructive feedback, which has been critical in refining this work at every stage. Your mentorship beyond academics in terms of checking up on me and making sure that I'm in tune with what I'm doing, asking me if I have concerns or any problem. Thank you for being a mentor, not just in academia, but in professional development, inspiring me to pursue excellence. Dr. Oliphant, I also want to appreciate you for your thoughtful feedback. I deeply appreciate your thoughtful and thorough feedback, which helped me refine key aspects of this dissertation so far. And you offered fresh perspective as to some things I may have missed or did not pay attention to. Your unique perspectives were invaluable in broadening my understanding and approach. And I appreciate your generosity of time in terms of you being prompt with supporting me to move this thing forward. Your investment of time and dedication, despite your busy schedules, means the world to me. These are some of my references. I can't fit all the references in the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Dr. Well, I should call you Dr. Nkemjika. Stanley, when we'll go to Dr. Alfan and then I'll field my question. So Dr. Alfan.
Well, thank you for those kind words, and I, I want to appreciate that when you got feedback, you took it. So I really do appreciate that. It makes your journey stronger, and all of our collaborative relationship all that much better.
Thank you.
I want to check on my volume. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. So, well, one of the things too I want to acknowledge at this very moment is that we have people in California who are suffering from this very situation. And I think the irony is not lost on any of us,
Yeah.
and our deep condolences to all the people that are feeling the pain, and that we all suffer. The other irony that I thought so much about as you were presenting is that uh, you noted that there's very little done on this topic in the United States. Yet Sweden, small country, in you know is leading the way in Europe on this issue. And Sweden tends to lead the way on so many things um, in our field of health that I think we can do better. And it does excite me that you are pushing the boundaries for this.
Thank you,
So I
Dr.
think that's really important. I I don't have a ton of questions. You and I have had quite a bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, and so I feel like I understand. I want to, so more of my thought is just making sure that when you write this, it's more of a comment, it's not really a question. When you write this, that you are as clear about it in your writing as you
Okay.
were today in your presenting.
Thank you.
Today, I understood your topics probably better than I've understood it before.
Okay.
So I want to congratulate you on that. One of the things about writing so much and revising is that you then understand your topic better.
Yeah.
So I think there's great strength in that, and I would like you to continue to think about that.
Okay.
So, Dr. B, I really don't have a whole lot of questions for Stanley. Um,
All right. So
I think we should just
yeah.
go on.
All right. Well, Dr. Alfon, thank you for your comments and feedback. I just had a couple things to kind of um, so one thing is you had the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis like with the directionality, right? So you're saying positive versus negative association. So all you have to say is significant association, then you would be
Okay.
able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's good. Um, and then oh, why do you think there was I know we talked about this when we were going through the revisions. Why do you think that there was not as many US research as you've seen overseas? Like, what's the difference? Why do you think that is?
Initially, when 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 I looked into it,
Right.
it was bedazzling to me that a country as big as this, 340 million, and
Mm-hmm.
with the uniqueness of the different areas of this country. I actually say this country
Mm-hmm.
is actually a continent on its own. It has three time
Right.
zones, right?
Right.
It was bedazzling to me that a country like this, in California,
Mm-hmm.
they have wildfire, and
Right.
in Midwest, they have some tornadoes sometimes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Place like Chicago, they have crazy issue with the
Wind.
temperature. Sometimes it drops. I
Right.
think 4 years ago, the temperature actually dropped to minus 40 something Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that they had to shut down services for 2 days, and people shouldn't go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Places like Louisiana, they have flooding and stuff like that. I
Right.
couldn't believe it when looking at it.
There's that.
It was
Mm-hmm.
like me,
Mm-hmm.
how they teach us in doctoral program. They say once you want to do your dissertation or find a research study,
Mm-hmm.
it's like diving into the ocean and looking for one fish.
Right.
So I was
Right.
just looking around,
Mm-hmm.
even though I know I've always had that idea that I want to do something with climate change, and I'm
Right.
passionate about mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
I just was stumbling and I looked at it. I couldn't believe my luck of seeing that there's
Right.
nothing done in the United States. And
Right.
part of the
Right.
reason why I think this may be happening, I will start by
Mm-hmm.
from politics. Politics is number one
Mm-hmm.
thing in this country.
True.
And
Yes. Yes.
and the way the country is,
Mm-hmm.
the country actually navigates where they can get money. So the
Mm-hmm.
question is,
Right. Right.
if they go towards this way, what money are they gonna get? They don't know yet.
Right.
It's always a case of somebody does something and money comes in, and then government will start investing in it.
Right.
And I could take it back to the idea of legalization of cannabis everywhere. California and Nevada started it. Every other states were looking at California and Nevada as if they were
As
crazy.
an example. Right.
But before you knew it, they were seeing billions of dollars made by these states.
Mm-hmm.
All the states started adopting it. It's all about the money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Right.
one
You can say
thing.
that again.
Another thing could be due to the different diversity in terms of people
Diversity.
who
Right.
comes into this
Right.
country,
Right.
their cultural differences that
Right.
exist here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I really can't pinpoint it, but number one on the list, I think, is political. That's why they are not looking at it yet.
Political. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
they feel like, I feel like maybe if they look at it and people start seeing what the climate changes can cause,
Right.
it's going to cost the government some money because they might need to shut down a lot of things that they're doing to make money.
No, that's a great answer. I think in terms of climate change, overseas, I think more people are affected. So like cyclones, I know about um well, different places like India, Bangladesh, they get a lot of monsoons, and that creates a lot of flooding and a lot more. I mean, there's not as much infrastructure, and the houses are not as durable. So they face much more casualty from calamities like earthquakes and cyclones and tornadoes, and we're seeing a higher frequency of that. So maybe that's why. That's one possibility. One can hypothesize maybe something that to go into when you go into the interpretation of findings.
Okay.
Just to kind of keep in mind. So yeah, no, great answer. I appreciated your description of some of these concepts that I hadn't encountered in um, from medical background or any area like that. So the eco grief, worry, of course, with your psychiatry background, you were able to actually you explained that to me, and I appreciated that. So
Thank you.
great job on that. Um, I think my main question was that why do you think that there's no U.S. research? Um,
I,
so yeah, how to locate? Yeah, I think you talked about this location sort of differences, and you said that this is a long country, right?
yeah, it's a
Very
big
wide
country.
country, and yeah, so there's going to be climate differences all across and up and up. So yeah, so that's great. Any questions that we have additional, Dr. Oliphant, or anything? All right, all right. So if not, then we can make a common consensus as to what Dr. I keep calling you doctor because you are a doctor. As to what Stanley will have to kind of revise or as is or go ahead and prove.
Hold on.
Mhm.
Sorry, sorry about that. My screen was bouncing around, so I couldn't see it all for a second. Um, I no, I think that you're ready to go. Um,
Mhm.
I just am going to ask for that clarity ongoing. I think you're going to have to kind of re-explain yourself in each manuscript area. Um, and then I guess the other part that I think is really important is to think about clarity for the IRB. This is a secondary data analysis. It's not going to be hard, but I would ask that you actually go to office hours, just talk to them about how to fill out the form, um, and do that in a way that's really clear. Um, Sometimes I wasn't clear in the initial stages of our discussions whether you were doing primary or secondary data analysis. I'm very clear on that now, but I don't want the IRB to have any clarity issues. This is not a hard one for them to approve, but I think that will move you along faster.
Okay.
So that'll be very good. And then, just in
All
the
right.
future, I think we
Mhm.
want to think about adolescents. They really are the ones who are going to carry this burden.
Okay. Thank you, Dr.
Awesome,
Oliphant.
Dr. Alphant. Thank you for that. Stanley, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you have patients to see and a lot of things going on. So thank you for doing that, Dr. Alphant. Thank you. Is there anything additional? So we're approving. So congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Oliphant. Thank you,
Yeah,
Dr. B.
Dr. Nkemjika. And then we'll take it from this IRB, and then you're ready for analysis. And
Okay.
so yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank
just
you.
remember, you have to
Mhm.
submit this proposal to Dr. B so that you can,
Uh,
the
right.
PowerPoint, so he can
Okay.
approve it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll submit
All
it
right.
to Dr. B.
All right. All
All
right.
right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
So, Dr. B.